On Citizen Daybreak this morning. I want us to transition to the next topic, which is about, we know that Parliament resumes tomorrow after a short recess, and one of the key things they'll be looking at is the question of finance bill and, of course, the budget. The budget reading should actually be next week on Thursday. The Finance and Planning Committee of the National Assembly has been listening to Kenyans on different submissions on what they have to say about the finance bill of 2024. Reuben Kigame has been speaking about this. But, President, help us understand, because, yes, the public participation is going on. Quite a bit of views have been given. But also, we have witnessed this before, that eventually, you'll be heard, it will be documented in reports, but not necessarily the decision that will be taken, that it will be reflecting what you may have said. What should Kenyans be looking forward to this time?
First, let's talk even about the public participation.
Yeah.
My concern is that the finance bill is quite technical.
Yeah.
And the reality is that most Kenyans will not understand the impact of the import of what these new taxes mean. And so the reality is, if there is no even proper civic education to help them understand what is the impact that these taxes will bring upon them, then there is no that clear understanding about the cost of how it will change the cost of living, how changes in VAT or what minimum tax means, especially top-up tax, how changes in, you'd see like even the motor vehicle tax that they're coming up with, how will it affect a larger majority, particularly public transport? What does that mean for them? Because when you think that it's only for those who are driving cars, you don't realize when you break it down that it will also affect you who may be boarding motor vehicles, cost of insurance and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so I say that the reality, as much as they're saying they are collecting views, they're collecting whose views? And it's normally easy. I think we need to start scrutinizing what is public participation and what is the threshold. And I think the challenge that we should start giving to our courts is that courts should scrutinize public participation, because it's easy to create a baraza and plant in a few of your people and give them the mic and say, you've talked. We held a public participation, let's say in Bahati area, and these are the views. I think courts should start holding a bit of higher scrutiny, because when you look at some of these bills and what will be the impact to the economy, if just the last Finance Act and now we're having this new one that is heavier than before, that's the challenge that we have. And the reality is most of these views are picked and packed, and we see Parliament, and I look at my two parliamentarians sitting here, the higher onus is upon them, that I am a bit critical to our members in Parliament, because you're the ones who are supposed to protect the people of Kenya. But what we see is a voting bloc, just like a foray, like a hedonism, that the government wants this to go through and they go through. People forget that you don't sit on those positions just as a government, Kenya Kwanza or ODM representative. You're sitting there as a representative of the people of Kenya. And we hope this time you'll not give us sad rhetoric that the bill is so thick. If members of the public are expected to participate and read and understand, we place a greater onus upon you. LSK gave its views on certain areas that we feel will be negative to the members of the public, particularly even on proposals to access our data with the guys that KRA needs to have information for disclosure. And I hope that even with the kind of public participation or the kind of views, they actually take time and read those views and look at the greater impact. I always go back to what Honorable Orengo once said: government eats its own people. Today you're sitting in Parliament and you feel comfortable. Tomorrow you'll not be in Parliament. So as you view certain changes that are coming up, and even the budget that will be coming up, look at the people of Kenya. It's high time that even as we call for this national unity, we look at the cost of living. We listen to the cries of the people of Kenya. When the cost of oil goes up, the cost of transport goes up, it will affect every single person. There is no Kenya Kwanza there's no Kenya Kwanza home. There's no ODM home. There's no Wiper home. There's only the people of Kenya. And so this finance bill is going to impact, if we even go down to the various sections of the finance bill or the areas that we have raised, I think the higher onus right now is on our members of parliament to ensure that they look at these views critically and try and look at some of the concerns that have been raised in the proposals.
May I just throw in a thought on public participation?
Yeah.
I totally agree with President LSK. This is a printed newspaper.
Yeah.
It's sitting here, and with me with a visual handicap, I cannot read this. This is how the bill is given to the people. We haven't seen anything in Braille. We are supposed to participate. Sign language, whatever, you know. So persons living with disability need to have access to that bill. Secondly, what is public participation when it comes to a bill like this? I would expect that it begins at the ward level, that MCAs sit with the people and tell them in their language, in a manner they can understand, this is what is in the bill. What do you think? What should I, say about this? MPs go to the constituencies and break this thing down, summarize it for the people. That is public participation, so that people know what is going to be passed is this and this and this. The era of our leader has read it and will, tell us how to vote is not a good place to be in the 21st century. Another thing is this, that no particular government policy or procedure should be taken without public participation. That's a part of the values that are outlined in Article 10. So you cannot make decisions without people participating. But lastly, I would like to say, who drew this bill that we are just about to see parliamentarians say, aye, Who drew it for us? And informed by what? What is the relationship between this and the 2023 bill? Have we fully implemented 2023? We had questions. Have those questions been answered? But so we have a pile-up of more concerns. The truth of the matter is, I think I'm sick and tired of a few people that we elect into office or force themselves into office, going to sit there and taking decisions and saying Kenyans want this. The general mood in the country is we don't want high taxes. We want taxes lowered. That is known everywhere. So when we go against the wind and all we do is raise, 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 then we are going against the will of the people. And I close with a fairly strong word to Parliament. I'm 58 now. Let me put it this way. I'm sort of 9 months older than Ruto. And I've been around and watched the Shikuku Parliament, watched, when debates filled the halls of Parliament. Now we have the executive literally threatening that you must vote a particular way. And if the recent history since this Kenya Kwanza government came into office is anything to go by, Parliament cannot vote or discuss anything any different way except the way the executive sees it. That is state capture. And I appeal to you, as someone who listens to you, as someone who watches how you do stuff, you are not looking good as parliamentarians. Excuse me. We ask you to go there to discuss things that promote the good of the people. Your people's, this power is delegated to you. Sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. Don't let us down. Put people at the center as you discuss this thing.
So quite important issues there, including the public participation for persons living with different forms of disability. And Honorable Mbui, I don't know if you have any direct response to that, especially on enhancing public participation.
Yes, Sam, I do. But I want to say that Reuben is right about how the House has been neutered by the executive. In fact, almost becoming a rubber stamp. And I hope that this particular time, when we go back to the House, because we're just about to start debate on the finance bill, I hope members this time will vote with their conscience, because last time we tried very hard. We talked about these issues, but then later on, after members had passed the finance bill, it went to affect them in their own constituencies, and that's why the comment came that the finance bill is a voluminous document like the Bible. You can't read it in time. And I thought that was really, really insulting to the House of Parliament. So members have to read, and if they don't read, let them listen to debate, because we actually do debate some of these issues. We raise concerns. We will raise concerns even about this one. So I hope that this time members will vote their conscience. But Sam, the issue of public participation is enshrined in our Constitution, Article 10. We have to have public participation because everything we do is for the sake of the public. Yeah. But at one time, this thing ended up in court, and the court of law determined that public participation is more or less what Parliament decides it to be. So it was left very vague. So I think it's important that we legislate on the issue of public participation so that we can come up with bare minimums. For example, how is it that, like last year, over 90% of participants went to give their views on the finance bill last year, opposed some of those, those provisions like the housing levy, but it ended up becoming a law. So why is it, we are a democratic nation. Why can't we use democratic principles so that we say if majority of the people are opposed, then maybe it means that we may need to remove those clauses that are, that are basically being frowned upon. But some on the issue of, because we are going into this discussion within the week, we already, you are all aware that our budget for the year has a hole of about 700 billion. And that's where we always begin. The biggest blunder we make every year is to start off with a hole, because we are an excessive, consumption and expenditure country without the, requisite income. If you know the kind of monies that are being, the amount of money being spent to renovate the office of the president, the office of the deputy president, is the amount that, in my opinion, will probably build the same house. There's serious excesses that we have as a country, and that's where the problem begins, because you put a budget for a road, and you look at the budget of that road, it's already way above what it would ordinarily cost. And that's why people keep saying in Kenya, we actually budget for corruption. And so at the end of it all, we need to raise money so that we can support this budget.
So, Mheshimiwa, what is the solution? Because we are told that Parliament has the power of the purse, because it is you who appropriate resources.
We do, but you see, some have just agreed with Reuben. I started by saying we agree with Reuben that we are an appendage of the executive. Executive is the one that comes up with the proposals. Actually, the budget policy statement comes from Treasury, and Treasury is directly the executive. And I think the architecture of our constitution in terms of how the House operates, I think that's where some of the problems are, because we copied from the American system. So we have a majority and a minority. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, because of the distrust and fear of the executive in Kenya, they will do everything that is possible to make sure that the person in office as president, the leader of the executive, also has a majority in the House, so that they can control what happens on the floor of the House, so that whenever they give a proposal, it cannot be opposed. Even when we oppose, we will only be heard, but we will never have our way. That, I think, is a problem.
The country budgets for corruption, with or without majority or minority. Is Parliament able to see that and say that?
Yes, we can, and we talk about it, but it will still pass. I mean, Sam, you are aware that of the kind of money that is being proposed to be used to renovate the deputy president's office, hundreds of millions, the president's office, hundreds of millions, and furnish, and the kind of cars, you know, we are talking hundreds of millions to buy cars.
To rationalize and say this could actually cost 50 million instead of 100 million.
Yes, yes, Parliament can be able to do that, but it will not, because the executive runs Parliament, Sam. That's where the problem is. The executive runs Parliament. You know, Sam, there's many times when you are about to make good decisions as a house, but phone calls come. And of course, from the executive, from State House, the house in the hill. And a very rational decision will be made that because a phone call has come. And there's fear. And I'll tell you this. I wouldn't want to mention but one of the chairs, the other day we had a discussion. And one of the chairs said, you know what, I cannot go against what the executive wants, because then I'll end up, first and foremost, being removed from this committee that I am chair of, and end up maybe in there's a committee called catering.
Yeah.
I'll end up in the catering committee. So you can see even the chairs of committees are also scared. We need to reach a point where, as a house, we can actually rally together and make sense together. Unfortunately, as long as there's always these hang-ups on the old constitution and the power of the presidency. How many members, Sam, have you had going to State House? And when they're asked by their parties, sponsoring parties, what they were doing, they say they are going to look for development. Yet it is the House of Parliament that actually passes the budget and puts in projects. So it's unfortunate we still have we still have hang-ups from the old constitution and that thing of the power of the presidency. So I think that's where the problem is.
Mheshimiwa Mathenge, I want you to have the final word, because with all these challenges that your three co-panelists have highlighted, it would appear like Kenyans, I mean, there's no hope for Kenyans. You said clearly here that you are elected to serve the people of Nyeri Town constituency, and that nobody should direct you or where you should be at what time. In fact, you are busy with the health committee, as you say. So what happens when it comes to voting on such a critical bill, that there's this perception that your side of the house will just vote yes, regardless of the impact to Kenyans?
Sam, after the people of Nyeri Town gave me the majority votes, because I want to dissuade the statement that Kagame has made, that people forced themselves, that people forced themselves into office. We were voted for, the votes were counted, and the person who had the highest number of votes was declared winner. I don't know how that can be forcing oneself into office. They elevated me to also come to the National Assembly. And therefore, I have a dual responsibility to ensure that their aspirations in terms of development and the nation are captured and reflected in the national policies and national laws. After that, I sit there to oversight government. It doesn't matter whether I am in majority or minority. And then I legislate. The two last parts elevate me to look at my country as a whole. Public participation is there in our constitution, but it is clear that 14 years down the line, the spirit of public participation in the law, in our constitution, ought to be translated, captured in words. Because there's a difference between the spirit and the practice, and the practice is the word. Number two, is there a difference between public participation and civic education? And I think it is paramount that moving forward, certain annual legislations, the budget, the finance bill, the budget policy statement, that there is civic education before public participation comes. So that we can be able to break it down to the people, that this is what the implication of this is what we are doing, this is what we are saying. And therefore, on the basis of that understanding, come and present your views. This time round, as a member of parliament, I have taken time to sit with one of the leading economists from Nyeri to take me through with another 3 members of parliament to take us through the finance bill. Because I need to understand it better. I need to understand it better. Lastly, the truth is that in parliament, no bill, unless at the point where it has made it to the floor of the House and committed to the committee, and the committee brings its report, unless the committee has presented the report that says, let us reject, as long as the committee, then when we would have to vote on that recommendation of the committee. If that is not on the floor of the House, of the rejection of the entire bill, then the bill is debated and voted for clause by clause.
But you can reject at the second reading.
Exactly. We can reject at the second reading. But the second reading represents the report of, after the commitment of the bill to the committee. But let me ask this question. Me and Honorable Bui were seated in Parliament when we passed the budget policy statement. And so we did agree that this country would be spending this kind of money this year. Then when we come to discuss how the country should raise the money, we want to say no. That would be doublespeak on our part.
So since you start with an economist, are there clauses that you think should actually be rejected?
There are clauses that I think should be amended.
Like what?
1, the tax on bread.
2?
2, the tax on motor vehicles. And allow me...
Amended to what?
Remember, I have said first we did pass the budget policy statement saying that the country would spend this global figure. The finance bill then comes for Parliament to approve how we raise the global figure that we approved.
How do you arrive at that global figure?
The global figure is also brought to Parliament according to the law.
By who?
By the Treasury. That is the law. The budget policy statement comes from the National Treasury and Economic Planning.
So obviously that's by the executive. So we're out of time. Motor vehicle tax, what's your proposal?
I propose that we minimize the motor vehicle tax and possibly do away with it. And this is my reason.
What do you mean? Minimize?
Yes. You see, we can actually say that this tax, we don't think it is in the better interest of Kenyans. Let us do away with it or in totality.
That's your proposal.
Just a moment. The other option is that we can say, reduce it from the rate that is proposed. We need to raise revenue to develop
what is your
our
proposal?
country.
Those options, what's your proposal?
I am proposing a reduction in the rate.
To what?
Not
scrapping.
Not the scrapping.
I'm
From 2.5% to what?
The figure, again, it is not what I desire. It is what collectively...
You're putting the honourable member in trouble here with his bosses.
He's not putting me in trouble. I speak the same way I speak here. I speak the same way in front of my president and in front of my deputy.
What to recommend?
Scrap.
I am recommending a reduction in the motor vehicle tax.
From 2.5% to what?
0.5%.
0.5%.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the feedback at Citizen TV Kenya. At Sam Gichuku, the hashtag to use is Citizen Daybreak on what Kenyans are saying on this particular question. Bobo Cheri has said that finance bill trade has left already. And nothing will stop it because it's only through taxation where government can get money to run its business smoothly. All right. Says that public participation is just a formality. Okay, Mwalimu, whoever is expecting Parliament to factor in public views of the finance bill is either daydreaming or a visitor in Jerusalem. The so-called public participation fora are just well-choreographed charades meant to create an illusion that our views are taken care of. In Nyakundi, you're saying Finance Bill 2024 is punitive and retrogressive to the common hustler. Which government taxes assets that do not generate revenue. Namely, should reject the bill in its entirety.
Nice one.
I have to leave it at this. My voice is not cooperating. I'll work on it. I'll be better next time. Duncan Madenge, Robert Mbui, Faith Odhiambo, and Ruben Kigame, thank you so much for making time for us. Up next is Sporty Monday. Bye for now.